That tree would look better over there. Overboard need to challenge me.
You are unbeatable. You have killed an enemy.
Let us not go.
You have killed an enemy. You have killed an enemy.
Well, that was fun. Definitely not for Arden's children. Okay, let's see how do we put CP lens to work in an actual match. First of all, start off with double blades. This is to help you farm. And this is how you actually farm your jungle. First, you drag all 3 minions together, push them into the bottom wall like that, impale, finish them off with a few other attacks. Now we'll go through this whole game together, and throughout each different point of the game, I'll tell you what to note about how to play CP lens. Alright, so now it's just a normal gang, killing Arden, almost taking down through just one or two alone. So most of the damage that comes from CP lens in the early game comes from the base damage of the impale, with the weapon scaling of the double blades and maybe a little bit of the crystal power. But you want to be putting 4 points on your impale first, before putting points into and overdriving both your Gitin wall and your combat roll. Make sure not to overdrive your impale at level 8 because that could spell a lot of trouble. Why do you have to do this weird upgrading of skills, you may ask? Well, without the early points in your impale, you will have 0 damage in the early game because your Gitin wall doesn't do much damage, so doesn't your combat roll. So you definitely need those points on your impales to be able to do damage to both the creeps in the jungle and the opponents. Now as you can see, I'm returning back to lane with a few items, but as you can see, the items that I have might not spell a lot of damage, but because of the impale points, I'm actually able to do a heck lot of damage to both Lance and Arden. Now in that case, why not max impale, like a weapon lance or sometimes even a roam lance? Now that's because if you actually read the skills and what the overdrive of the impale gives, it actually gives maybe 100 more damage. But as you can see in this clip, I actually turn around to get a kill on Lyra, after which I'll continue. Yep, so by maxing the impale, you're only gaining that additional 100 plus damage, and also you increase your base root duration by 0.2 seconds. But what you need to know is, because as a CP lance, there is crystal scaling on the root duration, and because the maximum root duration is only 1.4 seconds, you cannot go past that. So increasing your impale from level 4 to 5 as a crystal lance will always still end up with a 1.4 seconds root duration. Thus, because of that, maxing impale isn't very worth it. Now, however, by maxing your Gitin wall, you actually gain CC immunity, which means while your Gitten Wall is active, all crowd control abilities such as stuns, silencers, displacement effects are all blocked. Now on to putting 3 points into combat roll, which is Lan's ultimate ability. Now it's not like other ultimates in the game where it's super long cooldown. It actually has a very short cooldown, yet it is not useless. It is actually useful in a few ways. For example, it helps you deal more damage because you actually get an empowered auto attack after that. It also helps you reposition in a team fight, and finally allows you to go through walls and obstacles. Now that is very useful. Especially as a CP Lance in the late game, with the overdrive of the combat roll, you can basically roll in, poke, Gitten Wall for the damage reduction, roll out, poke, and just walk away. Do the same thing again and again, and the enemy will all be dead while you are still full health because you have health regeneration from your aftershock, of course. Now this is only possible if you max your combat roll, because if you try to max your impale, you realize that you have too little cooldown for your combat roll to be used as a damaging ability, and you will always have to use it to reposition, because using your impale as a main source of damage is not as reliable, and it doesn't even do as much damage. Now, CP Lance is so insanely good because, first of all, you have insane mobility. You can roll over walls, you can go over walls even with your impale ability. Let's actually just watch this team fight over here. After both my teammates die, I was put in a 1v3 situation. I was stacking my Dragon's Eye at this point without them knowing it, and with a few of auto attacks and combat rolls, I was able to get down Arden and eventually getting down even Lyra for a double kill. However, I wasn't able to take down the Jewel as I really wanted to, but that's okay. In a 1v3 situation, going down with 2 is actually pretty worth it because, as you can see, Jewel actually went down after here. As you can tell, Aftershock is a very core item for Crystal Lens. In this case, it gives you both cooldown reduction, which is very important, and it also gives you the proc that comes with your abilities, which have very low cooldowns. So if you're able to use your abilities to get the Aftershock proc, you're able to put out quite a bit of damage. You're getting Dragon's Eye because you are really tanky, you can't be bursted down, and you can just slowly stack up your Dragon's Eye stacks and start doing massive damage with all 3 of your abilities, mainly Combat Roll and Impale. And also, not only that, with your Dragon's Eye stack increasing, if you didn't realize, it means that your crystal power is actually increasing. And because crystal scaling on Lance makes him tankier because of the Gitten Wall ability on the passive and the active, basically as your Dragon's Eye stack, you're getting stronger defense-wise and offense-wise. Even your durations of your stuns and your roots. So, Dragon's Eye, crazy item on Lance. Now, pairing that with defense items, such as tier 2 defense on armor and shield, as you can see, that's how I build it, after my Aftershock and Dragon's Eye. So what this does is actually reduces the damage that I take by a huge lot. And because of that, I basically am immortal and cannot die. Of course, CP Lance is a very skill-based hero, and you need to be able to land your impales and your Gitten Walls very nicely, of course. Like, you can't be doing maybe one-man Gitten Walls the whole game, or you can't be missing like impales left and right the whole game, because if you can't hit any of those, even though CP Lance is as strong as it sounds, you, without landing your skills, doesn't make it strong at all. With that said, playing CP Lance is, even though it sounds easy, but it's definitely not easy, because if you were to finish this video and go ahead and play it in a ranked match, you're most probably not gonna do extremely well, because you don't only need the theory and the calculation behind Crystal Lens, you need to be able to have the skill and the positioning to execute it. So, no rush, take your time, go in a few or over 10 casual matches with the hero, learn how to land your impales, your Gitten Walls, cancel abilities like the Gauntlet. After all this, then maybe you can consider going to a ranked match and do your best then. Now the third crystal item that you get on Crystal Lens, which is also a core item, which is the Broken Myth, because with Aftershocks and Dragon's Eye, you can actually do a lot of damage, but not enough. You definitely need your Broken Myth to be able to output insane damage. So, third item, that's crystal on Crystal Lens, you'll be getting Broken Myth. Now after completing your defense items, your Aftershock Dragon's Eye, Broken Myth, damage items, you're pretty much invulnerable and impactful in teamfights already. However, your boots actually matters. You're not gonna get journey boots. Why? Because you already have so much mobility from that 2.5 seconds combat roll. Now there's already so much mobility, you really don't need more from the journey boots. So why not charges? It gives cooldown, but cooldown when stacked too much isn't as effective. And charges, the longer sprint duration, as I said, movement isn't a problem for Crystal Lance. And the mana consumption on Crystal Lance isn't high, so you really don't need a charges. However, if you spend on War Threads, it's actually so much more cost effective. And here is why. Now, here is where things get a little more complicated and hard to understand. So, now the terms I'm going to be using, I'm going to introduce to you in a bit, but instead of getting 500 base health increase on Crystal Lance by getting the War Threads, you're actually getting a 5,000, believe it or not, 5,000 effective health increase. Now, why is that so? Okay, let's do some simple math here. So if someone does 100 damage per auto to someone without any damage reduction, he just have to auto 5 times to do that 500 damage. Because he just have to output 500 damage. However, because of the 90% damage reduction, each auto that he does, instead of doing 100 damage, will only do 10 damage. And because of that, what it does is that your 500 health, instead of needing to do 500 health to get rid of it, because of your damage reduction, which is 90%, you have to do 5,000 health instead of 500 health, just to kill Lance, with just the War Threads health. So 5,000 health is actually a lot, more than most of the roam heroes with full build. That's how much health 5,000 is. And because of that, just getting one War Threads, you can add 5,000 effective health. That is very cost effective for a very last item, and helps you, of course, survive for even longer. Even though Lance effective health, once you get your War Threads, is about 4,000 times 10. 40,000 actually. Yeah, so it's pretty insane. The numbers are pretty huge, and you'll never ever think and never ever believe that if someone told you that Lance had 40,000 health compared to maybe a Finn with full build, probably only about 5,000 health. It's about 8 times more than a full build Finn at level 12. So that's pretty crazy numbers, and you have to get your War Threads to be able to achieve that numbers. Now that is crazy numbers for a hero that is built not to be tanky, but to be a hero that can do a lot of damage. See, Crystal Lance can do a lot of damage. It can also stun and root people on the wall for a very long time. It can also chase down any targets because of the mobility of the combat roll. So it's not meant to be built as a tank, but yet you are 10 times tankier than a tank. And you can soak up 10 times more damage than a full build Finn at level 12. Now that says something. You're able to do so much CC. It says something. Crystal Lance is crazily good if you know how to use it. In the right comps, of course. Now, as I said before, Crystal Lance is all about skills. If you're not able to land your impales and guillotine walls, you're not able to utilize the maximum crowd control ability of Crystal Lance. And not only that, if you use your guillotine wall and you anyhow waste it at a time where the enemy is not doing damage, and they hurl all their burst damage at you as soon as your guillotine wall active is over, or passive, and you take 100% of the damage, you are actually not that tanky as Crystal Lance. Now because of that, you really have to play and I have to understand Crystal Lance as a hero before you start using it for your competitive matches or your ranked matches. So to sum things up, everything you need to know about Crystal Lance is basically in this video already. It's super strong in a 1v1 situation. You can see how to play it in the intro clip against Vox, Celeste, and all sorts of carries. Just use the same tactic of rolling in, using your guillotine wall for damage reduction, keeping your distance, rolling in again to keep poking them, yet not letting them retreat because of your high mobility. Now that's how you play in a 1v1 situation. And how do you play in the actual game? Everything is also in this video. First, you learn what to start off, which 2 items, which is the double blades to start off. You learn how to farm, which is dragging all 3 minions together, pushing them into the wall and using your impale damage to farm. You also learned that in the early game, your damage mainly comes from your impale, and thus you have to put 4 points onto it, but you don't max it. And the theory behind that is already explained in this video. So, The builds are also explained completely in this video, and that's everything you need to know about Crystal Lance. As you can see for this last team fight, I'm just gonna use my Gideon walls, use my combat rolls as and when I want, and we're gonna win this team fight with ease. Why? Because I'm so tanky that I can actually win a 1v3 situation at this point of time because of my high cooldown on my combat roll and the damage reduction. As you can see, if you can land your abilities as Crystal Lance, you're deadly. You're super deadly. Even after the team fight ends, I'm still basically at 100% health, and you can't do that with all jungle heroes. So, to all those that think CP Lance is not viable or doesn't work, think twice. Because I truly think that it can be a meta hero and a meta jungle in 5v5. Thanks for watching the first episode of Mad Scientist Experiments, and I hope you truly enjoyed, and please like and subscribe if you did.